I never got to grieve my mom. Whenever I brought up the topic of losing my mom or my dad or whatever, I was just told, we don't need to address that. Early exposure to neglect just creates a certain level of trauma. How you can tell someone, think positively, you'll be better. It's like telling someone who is asthmatic, there's air, so why don't you just breathe?
Hello everyone, welcome to Mogoi's Musings episode 1, where we are all mental. I am very excited to host you guys for the very first episode, mostly because I'm also hosting a very good friend of mine, Allan. I have known Allan for 10 years, so he was making a joke about the decade and 10 years thing, but that's a story for another day. So Allan is very special to me because we work very closely together, and him being a copywriter, a really fantastic copywriter at that. He's also a quiz master and a content creator and an actor, although he hasn't done that in a while. So Allan lost his mom when he was 8 years old, and this has sort of carved the way that his life has turned out, and we're going to break that down and how it has affected his mental well-being, and maybe have a discussion around him grieving his mom, how it has affected his relationships, both friendships, work relationships, and even romantic relationships, depression, his interactions with therapy, if he has gone for one, and why he got to a point where he had to go for therapy, and every other thing in between, really. So I'm pretty excited for this conversation. I hope all of you will be able to tune in and enjoy, and also be able to draw lessons out of it. Be sure to follow us on social media. Remember, we're on Instagram at Mogoi's Musings Pod. We are on Twitter at Mogoi's Musings Pod. And please subscribe on our Twitter channel, on our YouTube channel, which is Zigzag Creations. And you'll be getting a lot more of this content. So without further ado, let's head on straight to Allan. Allan, thank you so much for joining us on the very first episode of Mogoi's Musings Podcast, where we are all mental. Thank you so much. Honestly, mostly because we have been friends for a very long time, and I kind of have known, like, I don't know the story to the very end of it, which makes it a really special episode, because now I get to have to interact with you on that level. I know we're friends where we just like talk about work and we have these conversations about every other thing, but at this and we've had conversation around mental health, but not to the very depth that we're about to go into today. So I know you told me recently, actually very recently, that you lost your mom when you're 8 years old, and the day she died, your dad walked away from you and your sibling.
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
Well, how do I phrase this? Actually, the reason why I told you recently, it's because of we've known each other for quite a while, but these are not things that you just throw around. It's information that you share once you feel like you want to take a certain step in your life, which is what I'm doing. So this is why I've been courageous enough to address this, because I don't want it to be my identity that I'm the guy who lost their mom when they were young, then the dad walked out, and there are some issues surrounding that, how the dad walked out, and the impact of it, if I've ever seen him, which I have like twice in my life. So basically what happened is, once I lost my mom, it's actually, there's a song that, I don't know whether it was you I was talking to earlier, there's a song, Ace of Base.
Yes.
All That You Want.
Yes.
My mom loved that song.
My mom too.
She did?
Yeah, she did.
It's a beautiful song.
Yeah, she did.
Beep, hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it because when she passed, it's a song that was playing. And then I remember we were playing football now, when in the evening after she passed and everything, and then my cousin came and said that sasa unaringa and mamako alikufa, and then it was like it still, she was young, I understand, but it still stings today. So there's a bit of trauma surrounding her death, my dad leaving. I actually can't remember it, but he wasn't at the funeral. I did not see him at the funeral because I was young, inquisitive, was just looking around who's there, who's not, and all that. Yeah, so this is who I am today. I'm trying to embrace that. I'm trying not to embed my identity into grief. I didn't get a chance to properly grieve my mom, her loss. We were close. I was it, but she used to tell me stuff. The things, or the man I am today is because of, I borrowed some of the things from her life. Her books, her reading, her love for Japan. And it's funny that I don't think my family, my family just my grandparents and 2 uncles, who we are close, sometimes not close, sometimes, you know how that, extended family, how it works. So I know they don't know this about her, but she used to tell me stuff, and maybe that's one of the reasons why I am who I am today. Yeah.
And actually, your inquisitiveness actually rose until now because you ask questions.
I do.
Allan asks questions. He's like very inquisitive, which also adds to the fact that he's a quiz master. So I guess that just, I know it's like professional, but also you're like, curiosity just like goes on up until now. But with your mom dying at 8 years old, and I kind of sort of know this because I lost my mom when I was also pretty young, like around 12. There's also the, like, you're left with your relatives who have to raise you, and in as much as they try their very best, more often than not, it's not the same as having your parent raise you. And so your mom dies, your dad walks out on you guys. There's a bit of neglect that happens around there, especially when you're left with the grandparents, and maybe sometimes they're not like fully committed to like raising you. This is a burden that they've been committed to, and it's not something that they were perhaps prepared for. And I know there's a bit of neglect that happened from there on. And do you think that that has sort of carved the type of person you are?
Early exposure to neglect, this is to no fault. The people who brought me up, my grandparents and my 2 uncles, they did their part. It's just that it wasn't a priority, which I totally understand.
Yeah.
So when people are not your parents, you get what you get.
You get what you get,
and you're okay with,
and you have to contend with that.
Yeah. So one of the downsides of actually neglect has just downside. Early exposure to neglect just creates a certain level of trauma, and the thing about trauma, it's more on, not really more, it's just the same as it is about the things that you experience. It's also the same about the things that you didn't experience.
Yes.
The things that you needed as a child for your upbringing, but you didn't have, to no fault of anyone's.
Yes.
I need to put that clear. They did their part, and I'm so proud of that. But there are things that I found myself, whenever I'm interacting with other kids and they are talking about things, and you're like, oh, that happens, because you don't get it at home, and you don't. I remember doing, when I cleared high school, I saved so much money, which is funny because I went through high school, through scholarships, bursary and all that kind of stuff. So when I graduated, I had some bit of cash. I used to write letters in high school. That's how I used to make money. So I had so much money. Yes. Form 3 and Form 4. That was my hustle.
So you've been creating content, like you've been copywriting.
Actually, I haven't thought about it like that, but yeah, I have been. Yeah, that's how I survived high school. I never bought bread from Form 3 and Form 4. I used to write letters to guys, 4 guys, and then they can send to their respective women, and then that's how I earned a living. So I finished high school, set up a kabiashara, and then that's how I started just sustaining myself. But I know I knew I had to do that. When some gifts or some presents are bought for you, and then due to your teenage angst, or when the minor transgressions you have as a child, when you show that side and then those things are taken away, you start forming an identity, like am I really wanted here? You get that. So consequently, from that, you start forming an identity that spreads through your teenagehood, childhood, and then this is why I can say this. I have mentioned this to you. I knew that I never want to have kids in high school due to this upbringing, losing a parent, and then start having to fend off more or less more of a certain identity you have. It's just you, so you live your life how you want, whether it's a simple life, whether it's however you want to live your life. It's okay as long as it makes sense to you.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been doing. Some of it is not healthy, which is basically why I'm here, because I have been addressing those unhealthy habits, unhealthy coping mechanisms that I've developed over the years, because I feel like I should be there for myself in a really, really, really healthy manner and not blame anyone. It's just a way of life, and then just accept how things are and then grow from there.
So you've mentioned unhealthy coping habits, and a lot of our traumas, I think, over the years, and a lot of us may not know this, but a lot of us are like the way we act and the way we deal with even personal or friendly or even work relationships are courtesy of the traumas that we've perhaps dealt with over the years. And sometimes we think it's just us being us, but a lot of times is that it is basically us adopting to the traumas that we have gone through. So what are these that you consider unhealthy coping habits that you've taken on over the years? And when did you find out that, oh, you know what, this is not how it's supposed to be, this is just me basically trying to survive in this concrete jungle of life and adulting in its hard setup as is?
These are habits or tendencies or things that you tend to do to cope due to some pressure, external, internal, or some situations that you've been in before that you felt that you had to morph a certain identity to help you survive that situation. Some of that can be unhealthy. For instance, you tend to accept certain people that you shouldn't, and then it has a certain ripple effect in your relationships. You can withstand, quote unquote, abuse,
mistreatment,
yes,
and abuse,
just because you feel like maybe there isn't someone out there who can, or maybe she offers this, so alright, I can just stick around, but you really shouldn't if you want to advance in your life. Well, some people may say it gives you character, but it's a painful thing.
Is that some of where you like someone you literally need to like be like, you know, this relationship is not good for you, but because somehow you feel like you need to do so much more to be accepted? Did that happen to you? Like maybe when growing up with being raised by your relatives, were you ever feeling the need that you need to do so much more than you need to do as a child so that they accept you? You know, because if you don't, you're not an exemplary child, you're not doing well in school, and I want to know how your grades were in school, that if you don't like be over the top, they won't accept you. And so you have gotten into the habit of either doing so much more than you should, just so that the next person deems you worthy of their time and maybe of the relationships that you find yourself, whether it's friendships or even romantic relationships or even at work.
I think I'll try and answer that question threefold. Hopefully, I will maintain that train of thought. I don't want
it's okay. Let's go crazy. Let's go crazy. Yeah.
I was an exemplary kid at school because I felt like I had to be that.
Yeah.
I felt it was my way of showing, all right, you guys are paying for my fees, or you're doing this and stuff. You're supporting me. Well, you don't really have to, but you're doing it. So it's the only thing that I
owe you.
Yes, I owe you to be good in school, and I was good in school, really good. Actually, I have like three favorite memories of my mom. My second earliest memory of me and my mom, it was during prize giving day in primary school. This was in class 2, and it was in class 1. Class 2 is another different story. Class 1, she didn't come. First time, I was second position. So we used to have those things of standing on desk, like first place
podium
on the top, and then second where people sit, and then the third place
first podium
is just stands. Yeah. So she was supposed to come, and then she didn't show up, which I understand, she had work and all that kind of stuff. So I noticed when her name was called, or parent, like when my parent was called, no one showed up. So I just pocketed, and then like I shrugged. And it I love that memory because everyone in the crowd laughed, and they laughed at the ease I had to. Okay, they
she's
didn't
not
show
here.
up. Yeah, she's not.
Or
No one
whatever.
came. So what? Yeah. So life goes on. That eased into my identity and me being okay with life, and I know I'm good in academics and stuff, so I have to maintain this. So I had to maintain being good in school or showing like I am worthy. This is something that maybe I can't explain why I'm a quiz master today, because all along I have developed a penchant for just holding useless facts or things that you just drop in party. You know this person.
I do.
I just have a useless
and dad jokes.
Yes.
Horrible puns too. Okay, also good ones.
I love
Also really good puns.
Well,
honestly,
this is information that I've been forced to hold because it makes you relevant or
charming,
yes.
acceptable.
Acceptable is what, or you
yeah.
feel like you need to be accepted, so you need to be a certain way, you need to have a certain identity for you to be accepted. Now Driftwood, to your question about relationship, it translates into that. You feel like you have to prove your worth, overprove your worth is the operating word. Overprove your worth, and you're doing you're not cheating. I'm not gonna lie.
Is that in campus or high school? Or
Campus,
even primary school?
Campus, high school, and then afterwards.
Okay.
But once you started understand, once I got to learn myself, I actually abhor cheating currently. So,
yes.
Yeah. So
is this cheating by cheating? Do you mean like in exams or like in relationships?
Exams. I think cheated in exams a couple of times.
Oh, so you're meaning in relationships?
We all had more Kenya, and in relationships, just having multiple partners.
Okay.
Yeah, it forms. I don't know. It's I don't know whether I can attribute this to a coming of age thing, or how our culture is that you celebrated by having multiple partners.
It's especially for a guy.
Yes, especially for a guy. It gives you a certain in the society. Yeah. Which really just you're just a shitty human being. Can I say the word shitty?
Yes, you can totally say the word shitty.
Sorry.
And I'm also really glad. And I feel like there's a conversation you and I had recently, and we were talking about just how you need to behave as a human being in a relationship, generally out of common courtesy, and not even because you're trying to be God's gift to your partner or whatever. But also the very good thing you mentioned is how, like, when you are left in the space where you need to like sort of grab for acceptance from all over, you find yourself doing so much more than you really need to. You know, sometimes, and I think a lot of times our relationships, like when you get into a relationship, you need to just come as you are.
Yep.
And you need to be accepted as you are. I mean, it's important for us to give the very best of ourselves to our partners, but also there's the need for us to be accepted as the people we are. But a lot of times, there's a lot of things we do as coping mechanisms, either as avoidance or even as anxious attachment people, that sort of curbs the type of relationships and we have normalized these things for so long that we think it's normal, but it's actually trauma guiding the way that we respond to relationships.
For some people, it's a byproduct of negligence.
Yes.
Or not negligence, being neglected. Or having certain needs in your childhood not being met. So you find yourself developing or filling holes where you just feel like, okay, I should do this and that.
Yeah.
And being in spaces whereby you feel like I have to do this for my partner, because if I don't, they will leave me. And you don't want to be left.
Yes.
No one wants to be
No one wants to be left.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what you find yourself doing things that are really against your character, but you don't notice it. It's just that you want to be accepted.
So Allan, I'm liking the direction we're taking this conversation, but let me take you up a little bit because I'm trying to understand something. So the day your mom dies, your dad walks out. You are 8 years old and you have a brother, right?
Yeah.
And so it basically means you have to grieve the death of your mother and your dad walking out on you guys. how was it dealing with grief? And also I also knowing that when your mom died is probably around 1998 or maybe it's 97. There was this entire notion of, oh, you need to be strong, you have to take it up as a man, because I know there's also this entire notion of manning up when you're so young, you're the firstborn, so you need to be strong for your sibling. So how was the process of grieving for you and your brother in the absence of the person who would have held you together, your dad?
We are brought up in the our TAS, traditional African society, has this, it embraces a certain resilient nature, and you don't have to be resilient or whatever. I never got to grieve my mom. Whenever I brought up the topic of losing my mom or my dad or whatever, I was just told, we don't need to address that. Like that. And I hate that because I was made to feel shame, or you're not supposed to talk about that. But I didn't want to address that. I want to heal. I want to move from that.
Yeah.
And I wasn't given that chance. I wasn't given an opportunity to grieve. I started grieving my mom when I became older than her. I'm actually older than my mom. My mom passed when she was 29.
And like, sorry, I'm interjecting.
Sure.
I know your birthday is in a few days, or maybe by the time you're going on air, your birthday has already happened, but you're like turning 34.
Yeah.
And your mom died when she was 29, and I hope you're okay with me putting this out there. Your mom passed on when she was 29, and you kind of did not even think you would get to that age. And so for you, any age after 29 is a blessing. And so now, happy birthday in advance. Or, like, if anyone who's watching, this is like after. So Allan just turns, so we're shooting this a couple of days before his birthday. He's turning 34. Happy birthday, Allan.
Thank you.
I am so grateful to have you as a friend. Really am.
Same.
Really
big
am.
Big same.
Yeah, and so anything after 30, anything after 29 for you is a blessing.
Yeah.
Because you didn't think you would live past that age. And for you, the fact that you're already at 34, that is about 5 years older than your mother, you feel like this is a reward to just get to this point.
Yep.
And so tell me about that.
I honestly, all through my childhood, I thought I would die young.
Yeah.
Because you're not given a chance to grieve your mom. You just don't understand about grief. You don't understand much of it. The next time death visited our family, it's way later when my grandma lost her mom. Her mom,
that's
she
your
lost her mom.
Grandmother.
Yeah.
Okay.
My great grandma got to live way longer. This was in 2012. When she lost her mom, and my grandpa lost the mom as well. My grandparents were alive longer. Let me phrase this. My grandparents' parents were alive longer than I got to experience my mom. So a few years back, 2 years ago, when we had this conversation with my grandma, and she started telling me, I told her, you have experienced having a parent longer than I have. You lost your parent when you're in your 60s.
In your 60s.
I didn't get to experience that. So when it comes to grief and when it comes to certain absence, you really don't know.
Yeah.
There's someone who asked me about that whole aspect, and then I told them, you have certain privileges in life. Like you can go through your phone book and then you can see mom or dad. I have never saved anyone as mom or dad.
Yeah.
Ever. I never got that. From the first time I got my phone, I never got that. I don't have a good memory with my dad. The only one, it was mixed with he was a
Is it a church person?
No, he wasn't
I'm playing.
church person.
Yeah.
He was, well actually my mom died as a result of domestic abuse. One of her side, she had cerebral thrombosis,
And that's
she had stroke on one side.
Explains why your dad sort of walked away, because it was kind of his fault.
Yeah, it was kind of his fault, but you are my dad. You get, just because you effed up doesn't mean that you should neglect me just because you feel guilty for something that you did. I don't have any good memories. I actually, just that one time we went drinking and then there was a domestic violence issue afterwards. So that's really not a good memory that I keep.
Yeah.
So I don't have any.
Yeah.
And I would want to have some. I just don't. When there's that void, you tend to fill it with
a lot of other things.
Yes, a lot of other things.
And
most
things
of
that
them unhealthy.
Unhealthy, more often than not. Actually, more often than not, they're unhealthy
Yep.
things.
So back to to answer your question about, I didn't think I'd go past 29.
Yeah.
I genuinely didn't think. So I started celebrating my birthdays.
Yeah.
All my life, I think I've had presents like 2 or 3 times. There's one time my uncle bought me shoes. Then another friend bought me a cake.
Yeah.
That was in 2017. I think I can count handful. I'm not saying that, I've had mental health issues because no one bought me.
You know what bought me cake.
Yeah, Tuda would understand what I mean, because he had a rouse when no one bought him a cake. But anyhow, like you process things how you process them. And you are allowed to process your grief. It's just that I did not have a chance to. Sorry, can I remove my shoes and is that okay?
I mean, like, so, feel comfortable, and like, I mean, we all need to like be as comfortable as possible.
Thank you.
And as you remove your shoes, I'm just gonna give you a second to do that.
Yeah.
And so I also remember, like, recently, about 2 weeks ago, you and I had a conversation about how okay, like I said, I lost my mom when I was 12 years old, and I think and there's this thing that we like hearing someone say I love you.
Yeah.
Like
the genuineness.
The genuineness, and it's not in a romantic relationship, just like even your parent or even someone just who is not looking for, you know, like sort of ulterior motives, any validation or whatever. Hearing someone just say, yo, Allan, I love you, just for the person you are.
Yeah.
And I think you saying that also made me think about it in like for like a little bit. And it's just how important and how lightly we take things like those. Where someone just stops you and randomly tells you, you know what, you're an amazing person and I care about you. And lately there's this, when people say give people their flowers, and I don't know if when we say give people their flowers, I think a lot of times when we say give people their flowers, we're always thinking give me my flowers.
Yeah.
But when we're sitting on this other side, I don't know if we try and give people their flowers when they're still alive.
Yeah,
you know.
Actually, I saw a tweet. I don't think it's fact. I haven't checked whether it's factual, but someone said that most men receive flowers when they die.
Yeah.
But just a pointer. I like plants as opposed to flowers. Plants.
So you want us to give you monsteros?
I love plants. Plants are way better than flowers. Flowers die. And I want to take you back to something that you asked. Before therapy, I have gone to therapy to address some of the things or to understand myself better.
We'll get to that, but I'm glad that you've mentioned it. Tell us.
So before, first of all, how we both lost our parents, that's something that you just, I hate that we share that in common. You know, that grief, but
here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
And it's not the reason why we met, guys. It's not how we became friends. We actually got to find out that we have this in common like way later.
Yeah.
But like we just like got pulled to one another because of our love for quiz, because we really just love quizzes. And then besides that, I think we're just like you're an awesome human being. I mean, I've told you that before. I'm giving him his flowers. I try and give him his flowers as often as I can. But yeah, you're an amazing human being. I think you are. So yeah, but in the process, no, I know. So I know that Allan is an awesome human being, but I think also in us interacting, we kind of found out that we have a couple of things in common, including the fact that we lost our parents when we were pretty young, and also because I think also our coping mechanisms are pretty similar in one way or another, and yeah, so there's that. But you were saying something.
Yes. There's before therapy, I couldn't understand, or when someone said they love me, I question it. I mean, what are you saying? You love me? What do you mean? What do you want?
Yes. What do you want?
I always felt like it's a backhanded compliment with something with the other hand open, expecting to
a
get
certain
something
thing
back.
in return. Yeah.
So when someone tells you that it's nice to meet you, or when someone tells you they love you, you take it with a pinch of salt. Because of the kind of relationships that you've never. Only my grandma would tell me I love you, but this was after I've done well in school. You get so you form something.
It was attached to something.
Yes. Yeah. So you start when someone says they love you, you attach it to something.
Yeah.
So that morphing of identities or morphing who you are, it messes up with your brain later. And now after therapy is when I've started addressing these things or noticing certain habits and how the ripple effect or how they shape who I am or how I expect or how I relate with people.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you get to the point where you're like, okay, you know what, I need to go to therapy? Because I know for a fact that a lot of times, even now, every time I mention that I go to therapy or that I have gone to therapy to someone, the first look they give me is of, chick be crazy.
Yeah.
You know, like every time there's a mention of I go for therapy or maybe I'm on antidepressants, like the entire conversation on mental health or on just like the fact that a lot of people have to take medication to just be okay, you know, like that gets someone to like put you on a certain scale, and they also begin to look at you differently.
Yeah.
So and also before anyone gets themselves to the point where they're like, okay, you know what, at this point I think I need help from someone else to be able to understand the emotional space I'm in and what it is that I'm going through so that I'm able to properly process my emotions right now.
Yeah.
So you as Allan, and I know for a fact you didn't start going to therapy yesterday or even the day before.
Yeah.
It means that it's something that you embraced a while back. When did you start going to therapy, and how did you get to the point where you're like, you know what, I need someone else from outside to be able to organize my thoughts and be able to sort of just help me through whatever emotional space I'm in at the moment? Tell me about, because I mean, Allan, you know that for a fact. People don't go for therapy at all. Like a lot of times people don't go for therapy, and every time there's mention of therapy, there's a lot of stigma around it.
Yeah.
So talk to us about how you ended up
Especially
going to
with men.
therapy.
Yeah.
Especially with men,
Yeah.
because men, apparently African men are not supposed to embrace the emotions.
Yeah.
And men in general are not supposed to embrace the emotions. And African men, unafaa kuwa ngumu.
It's a whole
You literally supposed to be like, ugh, what is that? I don't know what that shit is.
Well, currently, I'm very happy that there are men out there who are championing. There's a guy, Rick's Poet, and I love that man.
I love
so
Rick's
much.
Poet.
Yeah, I love him too.
He's very sexual positive.
Yeah.
And I hope at some point in this conversation, in this podcast, we're going to talk about sex positivity because it's very huge for me. But I like how he's very sex positive, and also how he's creating a space for people to just like be able to embrace their emotions, men especially.
Yeah.
So, and he's a poet as well.
Oh, he is. Actually, we
Yeah.
met through poetry.
Oh yeah.
Poetry has when I was heavily involved in the poetry scene in Kenya, it has a huge impact into my being alive.
Yes.
My being alive today.
That's huge.
Yeah,
I
it's
like
huge. Being
like
alive,
yeah.
First time I noticed that I really need to address how I am, how I feel, and who I want to become. It's I was working for a company, through media, owned by Karaoke Big, and I remember one time we were going to meet a client, so we were meeting at Galleria, and I went there because he was caught up in another meeting. So I decided, you know what, I'm not gonna wait. So I told him, come and pick me at Galleria. So when I was there, I took my notepad and I started writing, and I wrote a really depressing piece on my blog in 2015, February 2015, I remember. So I posted that and then I shared with him. No, he found me and then he was like, what was that you were writing? He said, just stuff about how I feel and everything. And then I opened up to him. Right then, you see this debilitating fear, you just feel it crashing, you are unproductive at work and everything, you just want to die. I wrote how I wanted to die, basically, how I used to just walk through streets of Nairobi, just hoping someone would run me over because it would be to no fault of mine. I just died, it was an accident. But I willed it. So I opened up to him and then he asked me, how do you feel? Or how, that's when I realized that I'm deeply depressed. It's just, you know how you want to go home? You feel like when you're out and you feel like, oh, this is too much, I just want to go home. That's how I felt, except I was at home. You get that? Like you're feeling that, but you're at home. So I knew like I needed to address that. And then there were two incidents that I will not go deeper into. Two suicide attempts. And one, Ngatia and Dolphin, I don't know whether you know them. Ngatia is a Kenyan creative, I know some dude. So is Dolphin, Kenyan poet, an amazing dude as well. So there was an incident and then they showed up at my door. Ngatia actually didn't know where I live, so but Dolphin did. So they came and then Dolphin took me to his place and then
Wait, Allan. The suicide attempts are you attempting suicide?
Yes.
2 times?
Yes.
In 2015?
The first one I won't delve into that.
Yeah, it's okay. Whatever you're comfortable.
The second one, because it more or less has some significance, and then that's when I went to Dolphin's place, stayed the night and everything, and then they released me when air quotes released me when felt like it was okay. So I went back and then now I realized like I really have to get help. Yeah. So I got help. I started going to therapy, talking about it. Because that time I just posted on Facebook. Back then I was on Facebook. I'm not there. It's been like 3 years, 4 since I quit Facebook. So I just posted. And I used to post these cryptic and heavy, dark and depressing poems and stuff. By that time I just posted something. And I posted a static. Anyway, I posted something and then they just got here and whatever showed up in my place and then I got help. It works well for me. Then that's how I started to process thoughts and process deeply rooted trauma that I didn't know I even had. These is there were some instances in high school, incidents from high school that, again, I'm not gonna go into that have shaped who I am, my relationship. There were really bad incidents, high school and before that. You know how there's this stereotype about how African men or black men lose their virginities,
rape
through someone older than them.
Yes,
and
it's mostly someone older than them. And you
know.
don't know.
You really don't.
So it's usually not consensual.
Yep.
More often than not,
you don't even
you're
know
young, you don't even know what's happening.
Yeah. But there are men who romanticize that. Or there's this stereotype again with actually Kenyan men whereby they had bad thoughts about sleeping with their teachers and everything. And some did. Or when people in places of power have sex with minors and then it's romanticized that you're becoming a man by having sex
broken your virginity with an older woman.
But without really knowing that you're being abused.
You are being abused.
Yeah. So some of those incidents tend to shape your relationships with people.
But it's interesting that you've said that, and I want us to talk about 2 things. I know you like only if you're comfortable, of course. I would like to know about sort of the mindset you were in at the moment where you're like, you know what, this is not it. I kind of would want to end this. And I know a lot of times people say, oh, suicide is for cowards. But like when you're a depressive, and a depressive is someone who basically just suffers from a mental illness or like depression, really. It's very different. It's not selfish. And a lot of times we've carved suicide as being an act of selfishness. But really it isn't. Actually, so if you would allow me, I'd want to know like the sort of mindset you were on those 2 instances where you were just in that space of, you know what, this is not it. I want out.
Yeah. First of all, the first one I wouldn't address that.
No,
I have never addressed that.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like maybe
with time, when you're ready.
It's heavy.
We're gonna have him here the next time when he's sort of.
There's gonna be a part 2, yeah.
Yeah, there's gonna be a part 2 where we have Allan come join us.
Way later, we process everything. So these will sound controversial, but people who commit suicide, I feel they are very courageous. Because reaching a certain point where you want to end it all, it's so hard yet so easy because you've had everything. I mean, nothing is working, so that's the only solution, and you want what's best for you. And if you feel like suicide is best for you, that's it. I have a huge fight with people who say, what about the people you're leaving behind? At that point,
you're not thinking about them.
It's about you.
And maybe to some extent you're actually thinking, if you leave the earth, you leave Earth, or like if
Or
you
you
die, you're doing them a favor.
Actually, I thought that
Because you're thinking that you're a problem to these people. You're a burden.
Yeah, so you wanna end it.
Like you really just like if I leave this Earth, these guys are gonna be in a better position to survive.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it takes such courage to make that decision.
I know. Yeah.
I don't believe cowards commit suicide.
I also don't think so. I don't think they do. Yeah.
That plain. I really hope we had fundamental care that's there, that's available there, especially for men, because statistically men are the more prone to suicide or ending it off.
Actually, the statistics point towards that, and I think if you watch the introductory our introduction, you'll see that yes, more men are prone to committing suicide than women, also because there are not enough avenues where men can talk about their mental well-being, and also the shame and stigma and capitalism around mental health. So I like the thing you said about toxic positivity, where every time you tell someone you're depressed, the thing they tell you is have happy thoughts, focus on something good, and that will transform it. But depression is not about just changing the way you're thinking. It's not about changing the thought you have. It's not about waking up in the morning and thinking, oh, okay, I'm sad today, so let me think of the time when I was such a happy baby, and then you think, oh, the day
that's gonna
heal everything. Yeah, it's so much more than that. And please tell us about that.
It's multi-layered, whereby you need to have a course plan and an execution plan on how to be better. And this is where therapy comes in. You won't go. It's not guaranteed that you'll go to have a session and then go home feeling, yeah, I'm cured, but you will feel a bit unburdened and you'll have addressed. It gives you perspective. To me, it has given me perspective, whereby you feel like you feel a bit lighter. You talk about it. Sometimes you don't even talk about it. You just there processing thoughts, processing feelings and everything. Depression, it's like, you see how people, you use a very good example, how toxic positivity, how people tend to think like, and again, you mentioned this earlier with religion, go read the Bible, you'll feel better, go do this, you'll feel better, or just think happy thoughts, think at the time you are, it's an in-passing solution. You'll feel better for like 5 seconds, but it needs to be a consistent thing.
Yes.
Like you need to address it consistently. It's how do I phrase it? Earlier I told you how you feel like you wanna go home, except that you're at home. How do you even start? Like you really want,
in your own house.
Yes, you're in your own house, but you feel like you really need to go home, but you're home, so you're just processing. And with good foundations, there are people who tend to cope well if they have good foundation being parents, friends who are consistently there for them. It may not always go the whole 9 yards, but that bit of support and that bit of understanding that, hey, we know you're not doing okay, but just it's okay not to be okay. But just I'll bring you 2 bananas. You wanna eat the carrot? Do you want something like that? Something simple, and then you just navigate the day. If that's consistent, you find bearing, and then you just feel like at least I can survive this week. And then those steps, those mini steps, and then that foundation, and then that's now with medication and everything, it becomes bearable. And basically that's what you want your life to be bearable. Not always happy, you just want to navigate through life.
Okay, and that's very, I think that's like you've drawn some depth into that, in the sense that you just need just people to be supportive. Like you don't even want us to fix it for you. You just need someone to be there and recognize that you're going through something. And that's it. Just be like, okay, you know what? Whatever you're going through, we're here for you. You don't even need to come and talk to us, and that we give you a solution.
Absolutely.
But we recognize that you're going through something, and we accept you even if you're going through something. And we love you just the same, the way you are, And 2 bananas or whatever thing, whatever support you need from us, and a carrot. Please give him carrots on his way out. But yeah, carrots are good. Plus for your sight as well. So yeah, so just having a system, a supportive system around you really helps walk the path in the end of it. Walk the path.
Yes,
yeah.
that's a good operating one, yeah.
Okay, great. So just to conclude this, because I know we've just like gone in deep and like just delved into it. Like, what are the things that you feel, you being in the inside of it, and some of us being on the outside, and probably possibly not understanding? And I love that you've drawn attention into how, because a lot of times I think every time someone thinks of someone having depression, the first thing we say is, oh, you know what, you could just change that like this, just think happy thoughts. Clearly that's not gonna work. So you sitting on the outside talking to us, what is it that you would want people to know, and how would you, like, if you were on this other side, how would you want us to go about it to just maybe make it more bearable for the other person, or just like support in this process? Like, what are the things that you would want us to know, and what are the measures that you would want us to take to at least help people who are maybe depressives, or people who are just like walking through mental ailments, so that we make the journey easier for them?
This may sound like a broken record, but it's a very simple concept, but has a lot of weight. You see how people use this phrase, like practice kindness. We're all going through a little bit of something. It may not be depression, but it may be, someone may be having a bad day, but that kindness or showing that you care, that's usually the first step. And earlier you mentioned how the whole think happy thoughts, and I'm really sorry that I'm gonna use this example, how you can tell someone think positively, you'll be better. It's like telling someone who is asthmatic, there's air, so why don't you just breathe it?
Breathe it.
Yeah, just breathe it, so you'll be fine. You get the same way. If you understand how you can't tell a person with asthma, I mean, there's air, just breathe it. If you understand that concept, then you do a bit understand about depression. It's consistent care, it's consistent seeking help. And if you know someone who is depressed, and again I alluded to this earlier, know that the care and the support that you're offering is not like I will withdraw if they act
if they're
like
not
this.
getting it,
It's like conditional. If you do that, I'll tell them I'm okay, I'm here and everything, but I want to be there on my own terms. If you be there, just be there. That's it. Don't condition it. Don't try to curate how someone should heal. It's their journey. Let them heal according to, just show support.
Okay.
Be there. That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay, so unconditional support. Do not be like, okay, I'm cool if you're cool, but if you like take a dip, me out. Yeah, so you like need to just like support them, whether it's like whatever, sunny days when there's the
It's not gonna happen
Yeah.
on one day. It's not gonna happen on 1 week.
Yeah.
It's a gradual process. People are constantly healing, but that consistent. If you're friends, then I would like to imagine that you wanna be friends with someone for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So just be there, like consistently. They'll probably do the same. They won't show up for you. And someone who's depressed, they understand. If you don't show up for me today, I'll understand. It's life.
Yeah.
I'm going through that myself. So if you don't show up for me today, I'll understand. We'll take it maybe a week from now. And it's seamless like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Allan. You have shed so much light into this entire topic. I feel like I've learned so much. I am actually hoping our audience has also gotten so much of it. I think some of it, to basically just like put it into like a summary, is so if you're walking the path with someone who is suffering from mental health, it's important that you walk with them without attaching conditions to it.
Yeah.
They'll
Just
have,
let them heal on their own.
yes.
Yeah.
So the idea is for you to just walk there and don't try to act like you actually know the solution to this, or you have the solution to it. No one does. So it's them walking their path, however long it takes, just being there for them. And sometimes you don't need to be the one to like, oh, I'm fixing everything for you. They just need to know that you're there, you understand them, and that you're just, you get it, that you're gonna be there for them whichever situation they're in. And I think the other one is to also say that if you feel like you're in a very delicate space mentally, get help. it's important to go for therapy.
Yes.
Yeah, get on antidepressants, get on medication, whichever medication.
I mean, not every therapist or psychiatrist
will get you on that.
Will give you
medication. Yes.
But by seeing the virtue of seeing one, you empower yourself to process thoughts, to process feelings, so to handle yourself with more care.
Okay.
Yes. So just seeing a therapist, however the treatment plan is, just adhere to that and stick to a therapist that you feel is doing good for you. Just don't, if you feel like you're not gonna get any sort of healing from, just trust your gut. These are things like, there are therapists you just feel like, nah, it just don't happen.
I know, because I feel like even getting a therapist who works for you is also like chemistry. It's like getting a life partner. Like it needs to just like click. Like it needs
to align.
And so you shouldn't feel guilty about going to someone and you feel like they're just not working for you.
Sessions. It's okay, it's normal.
And then changing to the next person.
It's how you go on 2 dates and you're like, you know what,
this is not it for me.
You notice probably they are loud chewers or they chew their nails when they're talking about, I don't know, stuff. So you feel like, nah, and then you move on to the next until you get what you want. Or what you feel like it's gonna help you in life. Basically, life is just like, Kitambo, I used to view life differently in the sense that I believe life is a forced labor camp whereby the only guarantee is execution. We're all gonna die. But before you die, you have to toil. You have to show up when you don't wanna. You have to work. You have to make something out of your life. You have to get careers. Basically, a forced labor camp whereby someone is enjoying the fruits of your time and everything. But I don't know. With therapy now, I'm just taking it day by day. Just survive, do good to yourself, and then just have good foundation with people. Be nice, be a rational human being who does good, not because their pastor tells them to do that, or just be a good human being, show kindness, and then keep it moving.
Okay, great.
I mean, that's what works for me.
Perfect. And I think that should, I feel like that is a philosophy that could work for all of us. So again, get help, see a therapist, see a psychiatrist, and get into whatever treatment they tell you. Change them as much as you can, as often as you feel like you need to, until you get someone that works for you. Exercise kindness, extend kindness, because we do not know what the next person is going through. And to be honest, even we don't want people to treat us unkindly, So the same way we want other people to treat us, we need to treat the next person. So thank you so much, Allan. That has been amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. Such a deep conversation. Thank you for opening your heart out to us. I know it's been a bit of a difficult path to walk on. We appreciate it.
It's something that I want to address. I've been meaning to address. So thanks for the platform. Thanks for the chance to address some of these things. Because sometimes talking to yourself, in as much as you're getting expert opinion, it doesn't quite cover it.
Okay, great. So and he also said, men, please get help for your whatever situation you're going through. It does not mean you're less manly if you seek help.
You're not weak.
You're not weak. It does not make you weak when you seek help.
If anything, it makes you stronger.
It does make you stronger.
To know that you are suffering, or to know that you need help, and then seeking it and then getting it.
Great. Whoa, that's some intense conversation, especially it being a very fast episode of this podcast. But you know what? This is the kind of conversation that we'll be having here on Mogoi's Musings podcast. I would like to thank Allan so much for joining us. So I think, as a recap, basically to discover what he has told us is, first of all, we need to exercise kindness to everybody, regardless of whether they are going through a mental phase or they're just having a bad day, because we never know what anyone is going through on any particular day, and even you as a person wouldn't want anyone treating you unkindly on any day. Secondly, there is no shame in getting help. Therapy is important, and it helped Allan, and so it could possibly help all of us. So it's important to ask for help anytime you feel like you have it's a bit too much for you. Therapy is helpful, and also especially for men, because a lot of times we have realized that men are not necessarily going for help because a lot of times they think that asking for help means that they're weak. asking for help is not necessarily a sign of weakness, but it's actually a sign of strength. And so we need to ask for help. And we, as people living with people who are possibly suffering from mental illness, we need to be very supportive of them without attaching conditions to it. Finally, and I think what is most important, is that there is no need for us to feel stigma as people suffering from mental illnesses, and we should not stigmatize people who are suffering from mental illness. Wow. So much for the very first episode, but you know what? I am happy. I am glad that is how we started off, and that is the conversation we'll be having here on every episode, that we get to interact with people who are possibly going through mental sort of situations, or even we'll be calling in psychologists to help us break it down, find out, ask going like this, why is that so, and helping us just put everything that we discuss into perspective. So to be able to not miss any of these episodes, it would be best if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. This is Zigzag Creation, and interact with us on social media. We'll be sharing a lot of these interesting snippets and even other conversations on our social media, and that's at Mogoi's Musings Pod on Instagram and on Twitter. You can also follow me on my private Instagram, and that's at Mogoi's Musings, and at Mogoi Ayenda on Twitter and Instagram. For all that, this is the end of this very first episode. See you next time, and thank you for tuning in. Goodbye.